All right, it is week 10 of the fantasy football season. It's time for your weekly reminder that kickers are people too. I'm ranking all 28 starting kickers for week 10 in fantasy. Let's not waste any more time. Let's hop on into it. All right, 4 buys for us here in week 10. We have Brandon Aubrey of the Dallas Cowboys, our GOAT, Harrison Butker of the Kansas City Chiefs, Evan McPherson of the Cincinnati Bengals, and Joey Sly of the Tennessee Titans. So if you have one of these guys looking to make a pickup on the waiver wire, we're going to get all that fixed for you. All right, first up, our favorite category, your start 'em every week guy. With Aubrey on a bye, only 2 guys, Eddie Pinheiro of the San Francisco 49ers and Chase McLaughlin of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So if you got either of these guys, go ahead, roll them out there. They do happen to have some decent matchups this week, but roll them if you got them with these 2 kickers. All right, first up, a little bit of housekeeping. Atlanta Falcons have released kicker Parker Romo. He missed the game-tying extra point against New England on Sunday. He's been pretty inconsistent and bad, besides his 5 fake field goal game against my Vikings in week 2. So let's say RIP to Parker Romo for the season. But let's just roll into his replacement. The Falcons replacing him with Zane Gonzalez. He was on the Commanders last year, filled in. He was okay, like 80%. Not ideal for his career. They're going to Berlin. They're taking on the Indianapolis Colts. This Colts team coming off of an ass kicking last week. I'm just going to put him in the if you have to category because Atlanta has had a lot of opportunities to kick some field goals. I don't know what the field surface looks like in Berlin. Who knows what the travel's going to be? We got all sorts of unknowns in this one, but the Colts defense isn't great, and we've seen the Falcons be able to move the football. So if you want to take a flyer on a guy, I think he's potentially a decent stream for this week, but you just are really kind of rolling the dice. Who knows how consistent and reliable a guy who is available for a reason is going to be. Okay, Jake Bates of the Detroit Lions. Bates has had a very inconsistent year after being one of the best kickers the last 2 seasons. Has a field goal blocked on Sunday, ultimately cost the Lions that game. Now they have a fantastic matchup against a beat up and uninspired Washington Commanders team, and the Lions are going to be out for blood. This on paper should be a fantastic matchup, but outdoors in Washington at night, a little bit scary. That field is also atrocious. I'm going to put Bates in the fine to start category because I don't think people are talking enough. The Lions might pour it on, and by pour it on, they're going for every 4th down. They are foregoing every field goal. We saw them forego 2 field goals against the Vikings, and in place went for it and got touchdowns. So that's just the Lions' MO. So Bates, little inconsistent, especially from those further distances, and the Lions are out for blood this week. Don't expect them to kick a lot of field goals. Probably a lot of extra points. Maybe you sneak a field goal in there with 5-6 touchdowns and you have a decent day. But Bates a fine to start. Just don't have a super high ceiling expectation for him. All right, Cairo Santos of the Chicago Bears staying in the NFC North. Inconsistent and injured this season, and the Bears offense has been kind of all over the place, but they're taking on a very bad New York Giants team. They are at home in Chicago, and they've been running the football like crazy, the Bears, and the Giants can't stop the run. There should be a lot of opportunity here. The red zone issues are still a thing, though, in Chicago. We get a lot of penalties. Now, Ben Johnson does like to go for it on 4th down, so it's a little scary. But I think Santos is a fine start here. It's a very good matchup for a Bears team that I think is very hit or miss on offense, especially in the red area. Hopefully they don't get into a spot where they feel like they have to go for it. They'll just take their points and move on because the Giants aren't playing with a whole much out there. So I like Santos this week in week 10. Okay, Andre Schmidt of the Cleveland Browns. Browns, Jets. I know the Jets are terrible. Jets coming off a bye. They literally traded everybody, but it's the Browns. We can't trust this offense. Go ahead and bench Schmidt for this week. Not worth the hassle and the headache dealing with a Cleveland Brown. Okay, Matt Gay of the Washington Commanders taking on the Lions. Marcus Mariota in at quarterback, thanks to Jaden Daniels snapping and dislocating his elbow. But the Commanders have actually moved the ball pretty well with Mariota, and they've kicked some more field goals. They get more scoring opportunities. However, Lions defense didn't look great against Minnesota. I expect a vengeful game from the Detroit Lions. I'm going to go ahead and bench Matt Gay. I don't trust Mariota completely. I think this is just a bad spot for the team. Go ahead and bench Matt Gay in week 10. All right, Cam Chicken Little, your official new NFL record holder with a 68-yard field goal at the Las Vegas Raiders. Cam Little, baby, doing his job. They're taking on the Texans this week. This Texans defense is one of the best in football. They make it a real pain to start against, makes it really tough to score some points. I'm going to put it in the if you have to category with Cam Little. I know he's got the distance. If you have a league where distance matters, you get a lot of bonus points for 55 plus, 60 plus. Cam Little's your guy because I think the Jaguars are really going to struggle to move the football. We still aren't seeing much consistency from this Jaguars offense. Houston's defense is all they have, all they can rely on. So Cam Little in a tough spot here. You do love the confidence that Liam Cohen's going to have in him now, making it. But I think it's just a bad week for Cam Little. If you have him and you don't want to cut him, like I said, higher scoring, big bonus leagues, he's definitely worth the risk, but don't be surprised if the Jaguars jaguar it up and it's like a 10-15 game and you only get 4 points. Okay, Tyler Loop of the Baltimore Ravens. Ravens coming off of 10 days rest, traveling to the Minnesota Vikings, and the Ravens offense back at it again with Lamar Jackson. Now, I would be a little bit concerned here. We see the problem with Loop in this Ravens offense is they score touchdowns with Lamar. They don't settle for field goals. However, this Vikings defense did play a lot better against Detroit. They got a lot of stops. I don't think the Ravens are going to be as hyper-aggressive as the Lions were, so there will be some field goal opportunities. Vikings special teams unit, though, does have 2 blocked field goals on the year. It is a little scary, but I love this matchup overall. I think we're going to see some points out here, and I think the Ravens are going to get stopped once they get inside the 40, so field goal opportunities a galore, I think, for this Ravens team. Overall, I'm loving this matchup in Week 10 for Tyler Loop. All right, and I'm trusting Tyler Loop here in Week 10, so I'm heading straight on over to Underdog. Tyler Loop over 1.5 field goals made against my Vikings. And if you guys are new to Underdog, make sure you sign up using the link down below. Promo code THECATCH. You're going to get a free pick 'em for Week 10. Take that pick 'em and take Tyler Loop to have over 1.5 field goals made. And if both hit, you're going to automatically double your cash entry. And on top of that, Underdog is giving all new users who deposit with promo code THECATCH a 50% deposit match up to $1,000. And as soon as you play $5 on Underdog, they're automatically going to give you an additional $50 to use towards Week 10. Again, that's new users signing up with promo code THECATCH. Be sure to take advantage of all of Underdog's exclusive NFL offers for Week 10. All right, Chris Boswell of the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's been really, really good this year. The problem is the Steelers offense, little all over the place, and another offense that just goes for it a lot on 4th downs because Aaron Rodgers is a curmudgeon old man. However, they're traveling to LA to take on the Chargers, a fantastic stadium to kick in, and this Chargers team is very beat up. The offense for the Chargers missing both their tackles. I know how bad the Pittsburgh defense is. I think points are going to be okay here. You're just going to take your points. You're not worried about them scoring 5 million points on the other side. So I love this matchup. Actually, the Chargers defense is good, not great, and they are injured. So we can see them give up some points here overall. Don't look at the final score for the Titans game. They gave up 20 to the Titans. They really didn't give up 20 to the Titans. 7 on special teams, 7 on pick 6. So they do get their stops. They do force field goals, which you like to see. Overall, Chris Boswell, a super reliable kicker, and I'm loving it on a big Sunday Night Football game. All right, Matt Prater of the Buffalo Bills. Bills heading down to South Beach to take on the Dolphins. Probably going to be beautiful weather. Dolphins off a 10 days rest. We saw a lot of positive things from this Buffalo Bills team. I think he's a fine start. He's probably towards the higher end of my fine starts. Probably not quite a love matchup, but I think he's going to be in for a very solid week. Maybe a limited ceiling because Buffalo scores touchdowns, maybe not so many field goals, but you get 1 or 2 field goals out of Prater, you add another 3 extra points against a bad Dolphins team, and you had a very, very solid week out of your kicker. So liking Matt Prater here, a very limited ceiling, I think, but a very high floor going into Week 10. Okay, Jake Elliott of the Philadelphia Eagles, kind of been all over the place this season. Like, we started off good, made some 50-yarders, then missed some kicks. It's just been weird for Philadelphia. Huge game on Monday night in Lambeau Field. Not a good place to kick the football. Weird stuff happens in Lambeau Field. And the Eagles are an ultra-aggressive team. They will be going for it on like every 4th and short. So unless you're in 4th and long, 4th and medium, you're really not going to get your field goal opportunities thanks to the tush push. Elliott's a solid kicker, a little bit inconsistent. I'm going to put him in the if you have to category. I just think overall it's a bad matchup, bad spot, bad place to be kicking for you in Week 10. There are better options out there, even with a couple of good buys, Aubrey and Butker. I think Elliott is a guy I would prefer not to have to start, but if it is Monday night, You need the solid points. You can roll them out there. Just be forewarned. All right, Chad Ryland of the Arizona Cardinals, and he's going to get a little bit of a boost from me taking on the Seattle Seahawks, but Jacoby Brissett in at quarterback. He is the new starter, and the offense looks 1,000 times better in Arizona than it does with the little man Kyler Murray behind center. So I think there are some positives here. This Seattle defense is ferocious, though. This is one of the best defenses in the league. So you don't have to necessarily bench Ryland, but I would put him in the if you have to category. It could be a limited pool out there. There is some upside here. We could see some movement of the football with the Cardinals, and Jonathan Gannon will take his points. So we could see, they move the football, get to the 30, get stuffed by this tough defense, kick a field goal. Maybe Sam Darnold's turning the ball over because this Cardinals defense really isn't that bad, especially in the early parts of the game. These two teams have already faced each other as well, but different quarterback for Arizona. Maybe that's a slight edge to the Cardinals. So Ryland, if you have to this week, not necessarily a bench him. All right, Daniel Carlson of the Las Vegas Raiders taking on the Denver Broncos on Thursday night. I know the Broncos or the Raiders offense look better with Brock Bowers. That is positive. I just want no part of Carlson. He's also not great, inconsistent, struggles to make extra points. Again, missing extra points. We're going to put him in the bench him category because I don't know how he has amazing job security for a guy who's all over the place the last 2 seasons. Daniel Carlson, keep him on the bench. All right, Will the Thrill Reichard back at home at the bank, taking on the Baltimore Ravens, and you gotta be happy with what you saw from this Vikings offense with J.J. McCarthy inserted into the lineup. We saw good movement of the football. We didn't see great red zone execution, but they were able to get in the area, kicked a couple of field goals for you. You gotta like those positive signs. I'm okay with Reichard. He's one of the best kickers, and KOC trusts Reichard from anywhere inside of 65. He might even trust him at 65. Reichard's had the most big kicks this year so far. As far as distance, he had like 259s and a 61-yarder, 62-yarder, something like that. Reichard's been money from deep. The only thing that can stop him is stupid camera wires. So if we don't have any camera wires going in this game, he's automatic. He's money for you. So I think Reichard's a fine start. Maybe a little bit, conservative. Maybe J.J. McCarthy, we saw him look good against the Bears in that fourth quarter. Maybe he has another dud. Wait to see. But overall, I think he's a fine start for you in fantasy. All right, Kamey Fairbairn of the Houston Texans, a monster week for us last week. 5 made field goals, and he missed a 51-yarder. Could have easily had 6 and maybe set the record for fantasy points for a kicker this season. But Davis Mills starting at quarterback. I do like this matchup, though. The Jaguars defense isn't great. They're okay. They have their moments. This team is going to struggle to move the football, but they did move the football some with Davis Mills, enough to kick field goals. I don't think we're going to see a lot of touchdowns. It's going to be a field goal parade for Fairbairn, and if we get 3 field goals and a touchdown, that's a good week for me. So I think Kamey Fairbairn is a solid stardom this week in fantasy. All right, Andy Borregales of the New England Patriots heading down to sunny Tampa Bay to take on the Buccaneers. And you know what? This Patriots offense, boys, has been moving the football. They've been scoring points. The problem is they score a lot more touchdowns than they kick extra points. I do think Tampa Bay is going to have a nice game plan out there for Drake May in this offense. So I think he's a fine start this week. If he's out there, there might be a little bit of a risk factor. We do tend to see kind of a big variation from him, but he's been really solid making his kicks after the first few weeks of the season. He is a rookie after all. There are going to be some hiccups, but I think it's a fine start this week. You find him available. You need a waiver spot. Worth a risk. Tampa Bay's defense has not been great this year. They are coming off the bye, so I think they're good in the red zone, going to get some stops here. I think we could have a situation where we're kicking 2 or 3 field goals, which is big time in fantasy. Okay, Brandon McManus of the Green Bay Packers, Monday night, taking on the Eagles. I think he's a fine start for us this week. This Packers offense is kind of terrible. They're pretty trash, but after a bad game, expect to bounce back. This Eagles defense hasn't been great. They just traded for a bunch of pieces. There's new guys getting filled in, so that could be a little bit clunky, and they're going to want to show out. They're going to be desperate to put on a showing, because if the Packers lay another offensive dud, the rumblings are going to start getting very loud in Green Bay with this team, with Jordan Love, what's going on. So I think they're going to have a better performance moving the ball, but they're going to have to settle for some field goals because the Eagles are still a pretty good football team, even with the defensive struggles this year. McManus, little iffy sometimes, but I think kicking at home is going to be helpful for him. So give me McManus as a fine to start in Week 10. Okay, Will Lutz of the Denver Broncos taking on the Raiders on Thursday. He is questionable for the week. We're recording these. Who knows necessarily what the status is going to be. I think this is a good matchup. If Lutz plays and you're willing to take the risk, I think he's a fine start. But for me, there's usually better options out there. I would go ahead and bench him if he doesn't play. Obviously, bench him, bench whatever kicker they play. But if you're not feeling the vibe, if you don't need it from Lutz, go ahead and put him on the bench. Find somebody else, because the Broncos offense also hyper aggressive. They go for it a lot on fourth down. They settle for touchdowns, and they probably are going to do it even more if they know their kicker's got a little bit of an ailment. So unless they have to have it, probably not going to force Lutz out there. So go ahead and avoid Will Lutz in week 10. All right, Ryan Fitzgerald of the Carolina Panthers misses an extra point that would have put the Panthers up 8, but he doesn't care. 49-yard game winner in Lambeau, the dagger. And you know what? Young kickers do have their ups and downs, and this Panthers team plays better, and they play better at home. And Bryce Young at quarterback. Bryce Young, I don't know what it is. They vibe with the kid, and they can run the football, taking on a terrible Saints team. I'm going to actually not bench Fitzgerald this week. If you have to play Fitzgerald, I think there could be some upside. I think the Panthers are going to score points, but the Panthers also don't score a whole lot of points. They're also not great in the red zone. They can kick field goals for you. Fitzgerald, very inconsistent. As long as you're not running them out there, I think at home, this is a good spot for you. Maybe a little bit risky, but if you want to go ahead and roll the dice, I think you can play Fitzgerald in week 10. All right, Jason Myers of the Seattle Seahawks, Mr. Reliable himself, and this Seahawks offense has been high flying and scoring points left and right. Now, they do score a lot of touchdowns, which is a little concerning, but this Cardinals defense, like I said, not horrendous out there. Myers did kick a game winner against Arizona earlier in the season. I actually love this matchup. Myers, one of the best scoring kickers in the NFL over the last few years. Who would have guessed? You don't even think about Jason Myers half the time as a kicker, but I think it's a great spot for him. I think the Seahawks offense is going to continue to move the football up and down the field. Now, do the Cardinals defense bow up, get a couple stops? Because the Seahawks can't run the football. They're a team that acts like they can run the football. They pretend they can run the football. They can't run the football, Seattle. So if they aren't able to run the football in the red zone, we could see some stops here, get a couple of field goals. I think it's a great matchup for Jason Myers in week 10. All right, Blake Grupe of the New Orleans Saints taking on the Carolina Panthers in Carolina. Not a bad team. Tyler Shucks, second career start. I don't want to touch it. The Saints team is awful. A lot of bad vibes. They're going to be bad the rest of this year. They're going to be bad next year. Go ahead and sit Blake Grupe in week 10. All right, the Los Angeles Rams. We don't necessarily know what the kicking situation is going to be. Sean McVay calls out Josh Carty. He's missed a million kicks this year. I think he leads the league in missed kicks or block kicks. It's just a disaster. So at the time of recording, they haven't made a move yet. Do not play a Rams kicker. Just don't trust it. This Rams offense is good. I need to see it first. It's scary. I don't know. If it's Carty, God bless us out there. If it's somebody new, maybe things will be better. I just don't think it's worth the risk. I hate playing new kickers. I hate playing guys that get picked up out of nowhere, especially in their first week after not playing anywhere. So go ahead and avoid any Rams kicker in week 10. All right, Nick Folk of the New York Jets. Not the worst matchup in the world taking on the Cleveland Browns, but I cannot trust Justin Fields and this Jets offense. They trade away their entire defense, basically. The vibes are horrendous in New York. I feel like now the fans are happy. They got a ton of good picks, but the locker room feels bad, man. Browns have a very good defense. I'm going ahead and bench Nick Folk. He's old. He's been all right. Not worth the risk out there for kicking in week 10. All right, Graham Gano of the New York Giants. Now, the Giants struggle to score some points. They struggle to move the football a little bit now. But this Bears defense is not very good. Jackson Dart, fun guy to watch. Not a whole lot of guys out there. They're probably going to be more aggressive, probably going to go for it. But I think Gano is in if you have to out there, if you have bad options on the waiver wire, I think he's okay because we just saw this Bears defense get sliced up by Joe Flacco. Now, I ain't calling Jackson Dart Joe Flacco, but I think there's opportunities to score and move the football against the Chicago Bears. So if you have to, Graham Gano might have a couple of field goal attempts, which is really all you're asking for if you're in a bad kicker spot. Okay, moving to our man Cameron Dicker. He is a kicker for the Los Angeles Chargers, taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers on Sunday night. Now, I am a little bit concerned with Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt out for the year. They don't have either of their tackles. Slater was okay. Losing Alt is now devastating. They were bad when he was out. They do trade for a tackle before the end of the deadline. Who knows what these pieces are going to look like, but this is a huge game out there. I think we could see some struggling from this Chargers offense. Luckily, the Steelers defense is all over the map. They're horrible against yards. They force a ton of turnovers. I think it's a great matchup. I think we're going to be kicking field goals in LA. Dicker has a very good range out there. I think Harbaugh trusts him. I think we could see field goal opportunities abound because it's not like the Steelers are lighting it up. So I think Boswell, Dicker could be a kicker showdown. 12 points from each kicker, 4 field goals apiece. Could be an awesome night for us. So I'm loving Dicker the kicker here in week 10. All right, Riley Patterson of the Miami Dolphins. We know the deal with the Dolphins. God bless us. Maybe they'll play inspired ball. Take it on the Bills. Not the best defense in the world. Look better against Kansas City. Not worth the risk. Go ahead and sit Patterson in week 10. And finally, Michael Badgley of the Indianapolis Colts. I mean, the best offense in football until last week. Colts looked terrible. They played bad against Pittsburgh. Heading on over to Germany, Berlin. I don't know what to do with a Berlin game. I don't necessarily know what to do with the Colts offense. This Atlanta Falcons team is all over the place as well. They look great. They look terrible. It's going to be outdoors. The pass rush probably not as good outdoors as it is indoors. I'm going to trust the Colts, though. We've watched a lot of the Colts. They move the football. Badgley's been really good for them. I like an international game a little bit. They like to kick and let's show off. I'm going to go ahead and put them in the love this matchup category. I trust the Colts offense. They're going to move the football. Now, if it's a little bit less good than what we've seen for most of the year, that's even better for us because they've been touchdown machines. If we can get them to kick some more field goals, I would love it. And maybe the Colts themselves are going to be like, okay, let's just take our points here. We know how things can get. We've seen Daniel Dimes be Daniel Dimes at points in this year so far. So I love Michael Badgley here in a weird Berlin game early against the Falcons in week 10. All right, that's going to do it for us today. All 28 starting kickers for week 10 in fantasy football. Let me know down in the comments below if you got any of your kicker questions. We're here to help. If you haven't already, like this video, subscribe to the channel. We got all the daily fantasy football content you guys could ever need. Must-starts at wide receiver, quarterback, tight end, running back, your must-start defenses, waiver wire ads. Get those trades in before the trade deadline. Guys you need to target. We got it all, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss a thing. If you want to see more of me, check out the links down below. I'm talking all sorts of football, not just fantasy stuff. So check out the links down below. Again, like, subscribe, and share, and we'll see y'all tomorrow.